materials that you want to submit to us, please get those to Kelly right here, and we can, we'll make sure that the board has any of those materials for us to review. And if it's an issue that's not of TriMet concern, we'll also try to maybe see if staff can help you get to the right individual or agency that can help you with your issue. And also, we do, because of this opportunity, we also then allow staff to give us any updates after the public forum during our regular meeting. So with that, I'm going to go right into the public forum. I'm going to ask you to come up two at a time. And the first two is Shirley Block and John Hunt from ATU.
I just love these little microphones.
Good morning, President Block.
Good morning, President Warner and members of the board.
Morning, Shirley.
As you know, I am Shirley Block, President ATU 757. And you're in luck this morning because I'm still in a good mood from the ATU annual picnic at the Blue Lake Park. It was an amazing feeling to be surrounded by hundreds of union brothers and sisters, their partners, children, and friends from all across the region and state together as one family to recognize and celebrate each other. TriMet management, of course, was invited, but didn't attend except for Doug Kelsey, and I want to publicly appreciate him for that. I really enjoyed the chance to get to know Doug and his lovely wife, Janet, a little bit better. Doug even called a few rounds of bingo, and I sincerely hope that relationship we started will grow. Please, if you get the opportunity, go on our website and look at the pictures of the faces and the friends and the fun that we were having that day. Well, let me level with you for just a second. As nice as it was, it seemed Doug and his wife on Sunday, for many people at the TriMet picnic who had been there as long as I've been at TriMet, it was kind of like a bittersweet reminder, the way things used to be. I truly appreciate Doug coming, but that was not a noble suggestion for other members of TriMet management to kind of follow along with what Doug did. It's time for us to stop fighting with each other and try to work together, because we really need to sit down and work together and just put the backstabbing and the fighting behind us. I'm ready to do it. I know the members of ATU are ready to sit down and work as a team. What I'm asking you today, Neil, is to, and I know Randy is not here. I understand he had a family member that passed away. Our condolences from ATU to Randy's family. But he needs to understand we need some resolution. And this is my attempt to come to you for the last time, Neil, to ask you and this board to let's work together. And I don't think that's asking too much. With that said, I'm gonna cut my speech short because I know Long Wind over here got a lot to say.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you, Shirley.
Good morning, President Warner and members of the board. I apologize, my voice is a little gravelly. That's the bonus of being the MC for that lovely picnic that our president just spoke about. My name is Jonathan Hunt, and I'm the Vice President of Amalgamated Transit Union Division 757. Like Shirley, I'm asking this unaccountable board for things that they can and should but won't do to improve labor management relations at TriMet. But also like Shirley, I'm not fighting for change. I care deeply about the safety of TriMet operators and mechanics and the quality of service they provide. So today, instead of being mad about the many problems we still face, I'm here to do you all a favor. I'm here to help you solve the growing staffing crisis at TriMet. Specifically, I'm going to tell you why you're having so much trouble recruiting and retaining new bus drivers. I'll let Mary speak after me about the other sides of the crisis and why so many people are now leaving or considering leaving TriMet. But before we talk about why people are walking out the door, let's talk about why fewer people are now walking in the door in the first place. I'm sure Randy Stedman has developed all sorts of tables and graphs and expensive opinions on this matter. We know he and others at TriMet are concerned about the insufficient staffing levels and have recently increased the starting wage for new drivers to make the job more attractive. We welcome the increase because pay is clearly one of the reasons TriMet is struggling to hire and retain enough drivers. However, pay isn't the main reason for the struggle. And TriMet's approach to the problem reveals the disconnect between management and its workers. The reason TriMet can't find drivers is that it has frustrated, insulted, and alienated the most effective recruiters in the history of this agency. Its current drivers and mechanics. For generations, the best, most reliable way for TriMet to recruit high-quality employees was word of mouth and informal vetting by its existing employees. Just like hundreds of other TriMet employees, this was personally the case for me. My father worked at TriMet and told me it was a great place to work. And the long and short, my brother and I both followed him in joining the agency, and decades later, we're both still here. And I can guarantee you that every single one of these union members in this room has recruited somebody to join TriMet, or at least they used to. When union members were treated with respect and dignity by management, we enthusiastically encouraged our friends and family and church and community members to work for TriMet. We recruited passengers who asked us about what it was like to work at TriMet and should they apply. I'll finish up. But now, because of the toxic culture and the fear and intimidation and distrust that has been created by people like Randy Stedman, drivers and mechanics no longer do that. In fact, we tend to do the opposite. When people express interest in working at TriMet, most of us tell them the sad new truth. We tell them that driving a bus or working as a mechanic is proud, important work that can be incredibly satisfying career. But TriMet itself is a terrible place to work. Look elsewhere. UPS is probably hiring because professional drivers are in a high demand everywhere. And this, more than anything else, is why TriMet is struggling. You created the culture, you created the crisis, and this culture, more than anything else, is what needs to change. Because nothing else will change until this is done. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Shirley, I apologize. I normally have gone and attended the picnic, and I guess I must have missed the communication, or I would have been there for sure, because it's something that I think you're right. I think it gives us an opportunity to more socially, meet with the ATU and have an opportunity to spend some time outside of this venue. So I apologize for not being there, because I've attended there in the past, and Blue Lake's not far from where I live, of course, out in East
I
County.
know. I
so-
looked for you, Travis.
Oh, yeah, and I've been there historically.
Yeah, I know.
with
I see
John,
you
and
there.
certainly.
Thank you. Apology accepted.
So I'll make sure that I get it on my calendar for next year, because I
Oh.
do want to be there.
I'll be calling you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next two are Mary Longoria and Anthony Forrester. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, President Warner and members of the board. My name is Mary Longoria, Financial Secretary of ATU 757. I am here today, as John said, to talk about the growing staffing crisis at TriMet. Specifically, I want to tell you why so many people are now leaving or considering leaving TriMet. The answer is the same as the one John just gave you. You have created a toxic culture of fear, intimidation, and distrust. That insults workers and prevents managers from actually managing. It's not just the big things that Randy has done to destroy morale and effective communication, like eliminating union orientations. It's not just a transparent retaliation against workers' demands, like taking away shift options like 3/7s and 4/10s that are completely unrelated to the block run experiment that workers objected to. These options existed many, many years before the block run experiment began. And in fact, these options were part of why many people chose to work for TriMet. It allowed operators to work part-time, consolidate their work schedule, so they would have time to raise children, get an education, volunteer, and all the other things people value in life. But now, not only are these options lost as recruiting tools for potential employees, their loss is actually causing many existing operators to look for other work because it is no longer possible for them to work at TriMet. All because of petty retaliation from management. But it's also the little things that have been done to workers, the small slights and subtle messaging from TriMet management that we are disposable. Things like approving a raise for Neil McFarland, which by itself is larger than the pensions that some retirees now receive for the entire year. Despite the fact Neil already makes $250,000 a year, plus retirement benefits that are substantially more valuable than those promised to workers who are constantly under threat of having those benefits reduced. And the entire justification we hear for things like this repeated rhetoric, we have to pay managers and executives better if we want to keep good people. Are we not good people you want to keep also? Or are you only interested in selling the false tale that certain management and planners are all we need to run the agency, while drivers, mechanics, and other workers are just replaceable cogs in the gears of the agency with nothing unique or valuable to offer other than their physical labor? And now the culture of fear, intimidation, and distrust at TriMet has gotten so bad that it is adversely impacting mid-level managers. Most of these people are too terrified of losing their job or rocking the boat to say anything publicly. But privately, the number of mid-level managers who are expressing frustration and poor morale have never been higher. When managers can't manage because every little thing must be approved by out-of-touch superiors, the entire ship starts to sink. And you're the ones constantly rewarding the people who drove us into the iceberg, while ignoring the workers on deck, shouting warnings to the people in control that could help. Just like the housing collapse in 2007, people were warned, but no one wanted to do anything until it was too late. For the sake of TriMet's future and the future of its workers, it's time to get real about what's going on here. It's time for change. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mary.
I want some water really quick. Good morning, President Warner and members of the board. My name is Anthony Forster. I'm a ATU 757 Executive Board Officer for Light Rail Transportation. You've heard today about some of the many ways of the culture of fear, intimidation, and distrust at TriMet that is destroying and isolating the agency. You've already heard about how this culture is impacting hiring and retention, creating your staffing crisis. There are many other ways in which this culture harms the workers in our community. But as one of the union officers that's leading the growth and our more active engagement in public policy, I want to talk about how TriMet is acting against its own political best interests by sustaining the culture of hostility against its frontline workers. Everyone in this room knows that TriMet has ambitious plans for revenue and expansion. And everyone in this room knows that in order for TriMet to achieve these plans, they need broad community support, including labor unions. So it's more puzzling to me than ever why TriMet works so hard to undermine ATU, the one union in Oregon that TriMet has its most natural ally in. We have positive collaborative relationships with all the agencies we work with, even in the most conservative areas of our state. The members of this board hear about the ballot initiative in Medford a few months back to increase the taxes, property taxes to fund transit. Well, that same initiative had been defeated multiple times over the last few years. But this year, ATU joined the fight. We connected our local members with community organizers in Rogue Valley and provided $10,000 to support the campaign. And in case you haven't already heard, the initiative passed in a landslide by 60% of the vote. We're not arrogant enough to suggest our support was the only reason that this passed, but we are smart enough to know that we made a significant difference. Let's talk about Tillamook for a minute. You may not know, but the homeless is a rapidly growing crisis over on the coast. It's not just a Portland problem. But there's a shocking lack of resources in support of these Oregonians in need. Every day, it's ATU members that treat these Oregonians with a dignity and respect to ensure that they have the transportation that they need to get to what limited programs they have over in their community. These members, ATU members, have decided they want to do even more. That's why Jared Franz, our public policy coordinator, who you all know well, spent last Saturday talking to local leaders and our members in Tillamook. We wanted to provide financial support and community services to help turn old barracks into homeless shelter. Unions aren't just about working in wage conditions. They are about building a collective power for broader social change. We want to build that collective power for broader social change here in Portland, but when we talk to TriMet, we can't even agree on what color the sky is on a sunny day, which is equal parts heartbreaking and infuriating. In closing, there's an old proverb from South Africa. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Well, TriMet has moved very fast over the last few years on a number of fronts. But the social and political context has changed, and the new challenge is to go far. The only way to do that is to go together with ATU. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. The last two that I have, Eric Holstead and Sue Christensen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Eric Halstead. I'm a frequent TriMet rider, citizen, taxpayer, member of the community. I come before you today because about a month ago, my children, who are now grown up and able to travel a little bit on their own in their community, decided they wanted to ride TriMet. TriMet introduced a mobile fare app. We used it. We bought our children a monthly pass. We sent our children to the bus stop. They displayed their pass to the driver. They were denied boarding. They were told their fare was expired, was no good. My 3 kids were left on the side of Highway 99. Do you guys know what Highway 99 looks like in Tigard? You familiar with what the bus stops look like? Or do you leave your kids stranded there for 20 minutes? It's a sidewalk alongside a busy highway. No shelter, no safety. They were left there. Now, I respect the men and women behind me, that they are professionals, and this could have just been a simple mistake. I would have accepted an apology. I would have accepted, we screwed up. Let's get it right. Let's get someone out there, get them on their way. I called 238 Ride. I demanded to speak with someone that had responsibility. I got a customer service representative that was completely disinterested, took the information and left, and got no response. I followed up on Twitter, on Facebook, with JC Vendetta, any resource I could use. It has been almost 40 days. I've heard nothing. Not an apology, not an explanation, nothing. It is imperative that we build a transit system that welcomes ridership, that encourages people that wants to ride. And every time that I rode TriMet over 10 years, there has always been some kind of a problem. All I heard was crickets. Nothing. Not even a simple apology. Now I know, and listening to the 4 people who spoke before me, the professionals, they're frustrated too. And I know a lot of them, and I speak to a lot of them, that they're frustrated, that their hands are tied. They do the best job that they can, but they deal with challenges that can only be addressed by realizing that these problems exist on a daily basis. And what do I hear when these problems are communicated? I hear crickets. I hear nothing. I go to public meetings. I try to address it. I've had Mr. McFarland turn his back on me. I hear nothing. I hear nothing to try and improve these basic day-to-day problems, such as leaving my kids stranded, such as people being left at a bus stop because the buses are full. The buses are breaking down. The stops are unsafe. Basic day-to-day stuff. I don't care about art. I don't care that West needs 2 more trains because of overcrowding. All I care is that we get the basic stuff done. And in conclusion, I want to know why it's taken 40 days and I still haven't heard anything, despite a public records request, despite numerous complaints. What's the response? Where's the accountability? Who's going to stand up and own that they left 3 kids on the side of the road for no reason?
Thank you. It's first off, I apologize for the experience for you and your children. I think that you will get a response.
We will.
In the next few days and follow up to those. So thank you very much for bringing that to our
Will this
attention.
be personally from Mr. McFarland within the next few days, so by Friday?
Well, what I would do is right now apologize for any mishaps that occurred or miscommunications or simple errors. I don't know what the situation was, but we will find out exactly what happened. We'll be a little bit, and I presume that we have the information in the customer service center about.
It's been very well communicated.
Very, very good. Thank you, and that will allow us to double check. So thank
But
you
is
very much.
there going to be a deadline? Because I've waited almost 40 days. I think a deadline's very appropriate.
So we will look and definitely get a response back to you from my office. I appreciate you being here.
By when?
By the end of the week.
End of the week? Okay. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Ms. Christensen.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, TriMet, for all you are doing to improve transit for the Portland metro area. I'm looking at this from a different perspective as these people. Transition is very, very difficult for everybody. Kaiser Permanente went through it several years ago. The same types of discussions went on there, but in the end, the transition was pleasing. Everything is running much smoother, and people are happy. So getting back to my presentation this morning, I just wanted to say thank you for all the exciting things that you are doing for the Portland metro area. You've heard the predictions of 1 million more residents in our near future, and you are planning ahead. You are paying attention to current traffic conditions. You are listening to the community, but most importantly, you are doing something about this gridlock. I have spoken several times because this is important. I have been to Southwest Corridor planning meetings. I've talked at the City of Tigard, Tualatin, and Metro meetings, and even in Washington County in Hillsborough, even though I live in Tigard. When a city builds better infrastructure, it builds a better future for itself as well as its citizens. Businesses bring jobs and prosperity, and the prosperity builds a more stable economy. Everybody wins. I'm fascinated by public transit systems, and I've ridden on many around the world, in London, in Moscow, in Ireland, and Paris. Many were award-winning systems, including the bus on Oahu in Hawaii. Now, in case you don't know, the bus is now looking at a MAX system to help correct their gridlocks. All of this took planning way, way, way back there, at least 100 years. In Berlin 2 months ago, they are finally putting in a final piece for their underground system that was planned in 1920. But because of conditions and wars, it's only being finished right now. The new Tigard line will complete your plans for interactive transit here in the metro area. Finally, we will be able to get around all the communities where we have grown up and where we have friends and family. I started in Portland. I've lived in Milwaukee. I'm currently in Tigard, but I will be going back to the Milwaukee area. I have friends in Canby and Gresham and Hillsborough. I volunteer in Hillsborough. So I do a lot of traveling, and the bikes are fine if you're young enough to be able to do that. And when we used to be able to walk across town to go and do what we wanted to do, we can't do that anymore either. So the best thing that's happening to us now is your hop-on, hop-off bus system or train MAX system, where we... All right, so thank you for your strong commitment. This will be great to see where the Tiger Transit line will go and connect so I can get around wherever I want to go without having to sit hours in traffic. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for coming.
you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. So that's all I have signed up this morning. Is there anybody else that missed the sign up that we wanted to get this morning? All right, well, before I close this, I just want to say thank you to the ATU folks for coming here. I think everybody up here will say honestly that without you, we can't do the work. We have to work in partnership with the union, and all of us, I believe, feel that way very, very strongly. Having said that, doesn't mean isn't going to be disagreements between the union and management. There always is. There always are. And I just hope that as we look at the future, we can roll up our sleeves and work together. President Block, I think you've said it very, very well. And I would like to ask staff to maybe return with a little bit more information, because I know that the economy and the unemployment rate is impacting a lot of people's ability to secure, qualified applicants. But I'd like to actually understand the numbers a bit and the reasons people have left or are leaving that could allow us to just understand kind of the situation we have here. I don't know whether the rest of the board feels that way, but I think that might be wonderful to understand, because in this current economic environment, we have to be very competitive, and we have to be mindful of who we compete with, and that's what we want. We want to make sure that we pay competitive salaries and benefits that allow us to balance the needs of our budget with our ability to recruit and retain folks. So I'm sorry, Mr. General Manager, you wanted to...
During my remarks, I can certainly give you an
Okay.
update on that.
Good, that'd be great.
Long story short, there is no hiring crisis, but I'll share some numbers with you.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see a little more detail on that, so I understand. Anything else from the board on this one? Okay, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing and say thank you, and we look forward to continuing working with you. And I didn't have the picnic on my calendar either, and I don't know why I didn't, so I would like to attend. So thanks again for bringing that to our attention. All right, with that, public forum is now closed. What I'm going to do is move on to the regular agenda, and I will call to order the regular business meeting of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon's Board of Directors meeting for July 27, 2016. With that, let's go into the board reports. We have two reports that are on the agenda. The first one is from the Committee on Accessible Transportation, Director Baumann.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. The packets that the board members have, there are minutes for the May CAT meeting. I'm going to give you orally a report on the July meeting, which took place last week on July 20th. At that meeting, CAT elected officers for the next term. Claudia Robertson was reelected to the position of vice chair, and Arnold Panich was reelected to the position of member at large, and they're going to serve 2-year terms. We had a report from Sergeant Matt Engen of the Transit Police regarding activity by the police, and he responded to committee members' questions. Susan Florentino gave a report on the status of lift operations and discussed a new report format for the committee. Jeff Owen provided a report on the TriMet bike plan and responded to extensive questions from committee members. Finally, Jennifer Kuzer reported on the Powell Division Transit and Development Project. This report generated considerable questions and discussion from members of the CAT. They're concerned about the reduction in the number of bus stops on Southeast Division between Southeast 8th and 82nd Avenues. They were concerned about increasing the distance between stops and the impact that will have on seniors and people with disabilities. And at the end of the meeting, the committee unanimously passed a motion opposing the proposed reduction in stops on Southeast Division from the current 26 stops to the proposed 11. And that's the report.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Baumann? I just note I read the full minutes that were in our packet. You folks covered a lot of ground in your 3 hours, I saw. So,
Absolutely. I've learned a lot. It's been an honor to attend the meetings.
good, thank you. Director Stovall, I understand you're going to provide the Finance and Audit Committee report this morning?
Yes, thank you. The Finance and Audit Committee met on June 22nd to discuss a couple of key items. The first item that we discussed and addressed was the FY 2016 audit. Masa Adams, who has done our audit in prior years, is going to continue to move forward with the audit. We discussed the audit process, the new accounting and auditing standards, and we also focused on a concept called materiality and did some discussion about what the audit looks like and what it's going to highlight. The board will have an opportunity to review the audit results on September 28th at the board meeting, and the Finance and Audit Committee will review prior to that. And if you remember last year for 2016, we received glowing remarks from our auditors in regards to the work that is done with our team. Dee Brookshire and her team has done just a phenomenal job in continuing the excellence of producing our financial reports. They actually said that TriMet's audit results could be used and process could be used as a model to other agencies across the country due to the speed at which they were able to complete it because of the accuracy of the information. So that puts a little bit of pressure on Dee and her team to continue the excellent performance, but we've got great confidence that we'll be able to move forward with another set of great results and another great audit. We did follow up, as you've heard, just prior to giving these updates from the ATU. We did discuss the labor update, which is something that's critical to TriMet's financial future. And as was reported in the media, TriMet extended an offer to continue to roll forward or extend the current contract with the ATU for 2 more years. That was subsequently rejected by the ATU, so we are going into further negotiations and conversations. As you've just heard about from the ATU, some of their thoughts and ideas and challenges that they see. Lastly, in regards to something that also was just referenced, was the our need to continue to bring in new talent into the organization. And that comes by way of bringing in new drivers that come to a program where they drive roughly and they go through a 6-week training period. And for that, we've actually increased their wage by about $3 per hour to ensure that we're meeting those hiring targets and to encourage the growth in the organization as we continue to look forward, as was referenced by the last presenter in the public comment in regards to the growth of the region. And I don't know about you, but I've in the area that I live in, I've seen quite an inflow of out-of-state plates moving in with large U-Haul trucks and USA Moving and all of those things. So it appears that the in-migration has started, and people have heard about the wonderfulness of Oregon. I no longer think they believe it rains here 366 days a year, because I think they are moving in. So ultimately, those are the 2 key items that we discussed at the Finance and Audit Committee. And again, the major focus was on the labor update, and then also the FY16 audit presentation, which we'll have our audit results by September at the September board meeting.
Great, thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions to the board? See none? Thank you very much. Well, then let's move right on to the general manager report. Mr. McFarland?
Board President, members of the board, good morning.
Morning.
I did want to respond to a couple of the topics in, as noted in the public forum. And as I noted earlier, there really is no hiring crisis at this point in time, because I think your staff has taken some changes, including the additional $3 an hour for the training wage and a more assertive marketing campaign. We have been meeting our targets to fill our classes. Remember, we have a class of operators of about 20 starting every 3 weeks, and that will be continuing throughout the rest of the rest of the year, and actually at least through 2018, as we can begin to see it right now. So that is probably a much greater number of operators that we're hiring than, frankly, we have at almost any time in our history. So we're in relatively new territory, which has caused us to really step up our efforts. What we do, and this is what I'll share with you in numerical tabular format, is we actually track the flow, the number of applicants we get every week. And our target is to get at least 60 applications in every week so that we can actually fill that class of 20. And again, it's a bit of a long hiring process. That's one of the things we're trying to do also, is shorten it, which would make it more attractive to people, I think, who are looking for a new career. But it includes all the background checks and other things that you've talked about and related to our policies. So we make sure that we really have a qualified applicant going into the training seat for that 6-week period. I wanted to respond to one other notion, which is that we have indeed eliminated or greatly reduced the sort of 3/7 shifts for mini-run operators, or the 4/10s. And the reason for that was the ATU's cancellation of the block run experiment that we were running. In addition, what has changed since the situation before that block run sign-up experiment was underway is the imposition of hours of service requirements by ODOT, and that is now part of our union contract as well. I'm convinced we're actually a much safer agency because of those hours of service limitations, but they do indeed begin to affect the kinds of shifts and the number of shifts and the number of operators that we need to cover that. And again, just to note to the board members, I don't know you're very familiar with this, but is that we have a particular problem with our business in that there are peaks in the morning and the evening where we have to put out a couple hundred extra buses as compared to the base of the day. So that requires some very innovative staffing. And with the cancellation of the block run experiment, we were required to really rethink it entirely to go back to the piecemeal sign-up, day-by-day sign-up that the ATU contract otherwise requires. We remain very interested in working with the ATU to see if there is a block run arrangement that can restore those more desirable shifts, because we think it's desirable for everyone, including us, but that takes the collaboration of both parties. And just to note on that, we have invited and continue to invite the ATU to participate in a number of our continuous improvement teams. I'll be chatting with President Block next week about that and particular opportunities that we have for ATU specific involvement in those teams of employees and managers working together to solve problems. One of those, as you might recall, is a bus operator continuous improvement team, which actually won an award from the governor's office related to the ergonomic improvements around the bus operator cab and many other issues that they dealt with in terms of making the daily life of a bus operator more desirable. So the only other thing that I would just note is that there was a lot of talk about sort of management, micromanagement, or control, and I would just sort of note that there is no more valuable employee to us than our operators and our mechanics. We invest greatly in them in terms of their training and their support, and I think everyone on the management team values that in a very, very high level, at a very high level. So, I would just note to the board that we have a number of stresses and strains related to the union contract coming, and we'll have to obviously work through those, and we look forward to doing that with the ATU. I did want to comment just on Mr. Halstead's note. I've been told via the text that staff actually had communicated with Mr. Halstead. We will do so again formally from my office. I would also just note that one of the things Mr. Halstead was insisting on is that what will happen to the operator, and we do not share related to these responses our personnel actions that might follow. So we do keep those confidential as is, I think, good practice. But we do always follow up if there's an operator that needs additional assistance or training in any of these matters. And again, that's why we have trainers assigned at every garage and managers at every garage to make sure that we intercept these issues and talk to our operators about the proper operating procedures, if you will, on all of these issues. So just to note, but we will also provide a copy of that correspondence to you so you understand what we have been doing in response to that as well.
Wait a minute, let's just answer any questions or comments.
No, I was just saying thank you.
Thank you. I guess I just want, when you come back to us with some information on the hiring.
Yes.
I think the other one that caught my attention there is what I heard is people are leaving much more rapidly. So I guess I'd like to understand the voluntary, involuntary separations. And, I know there's a lot from retirement as a result of baby boomers, retiring. And so I'd just like to understand if there's some trend there that's different than it has been in the past. And I know the economy very much influences that. And again, we're in a very hot economy at the moment. So I'd like to understand that side of it, going out the door side as well as the
Happy to provide that to you. And I must admit, I'm tired of signing retirement letters, but nonetheless, it is a sign of our times. And again, we do have a workforce that is a little heavier in the baby boomer generation than many others.
Just one quick follow-up about Mr. Holstead. He said that he hadn't received any communication for 40 days, but it sounds like there's been some engagement
Yeah. So
during that time frame.
We've engaged, both customer service and myself personally. I actually just spoke to him too, and he wants a specific answer back on certain things for resolution for all of this. Just like Neil said, we don't share personnel action.
Correct.
We wanted to know what happened, was the operator disciplined or anything like that. So we don't share that.
Thank you, because from his perspective, he had said it's been 40 days and all I've heard is crickets. So that doesn't sound like that's the case. It sounds like you have actually personally has reached out to Mr. Holstead also. Thank you. Appreciate that update and the speed of that update.
any other questions on those matters? All right, very good. And again, we do look forward to, and I will be having a hopefully very constructive conversation with President Block next week as well. I did want to just note our overall ridership numbers. And would just sort of generally the message is flat. We did grow ridership by about 0.2%, but once again, over the last, this is really reporting for the month of June, we saw this shift between bus and light rail because of the Orange Line. And again, we'll be seeing that in the numbers really all the way until we get to the October to October comparison. We'll be able to sort of see how our modes are comparing. So overall bus ridership, or light rail ridership was up about 11.6% weekly, 14% during the peak commuting hours. So we're still seeing very full trains in the morning and evening. West ridership was essentially flat, down about 2% this time. Just to note, we always do track this related to gas prices, and gas prices are still about 50 cents a gallon lower than they were this time last year. And while I'm mentioning the Orange Line, or the effect of the Orange Line on ridership, many of you know that we have had very full park and ride lots related to the Orange Line. So I'm pleased to report that on August 1st, we'll actually be opening an augmentation of the Park Avenue Park and Ride. We've signed an agreement with the Milwaukee Elks to provide about 150 spaces additionally at that location. So we're hoping to actually augment our ridership and provide a little bit more connection for that general community. Remember, the parking garage opened with 402 spaces, so this puts us up to about 550 or thereabouts. I think the garage has literally been full from the day we opened the line. And again, you might recall that we tried to actually increase the size of that, but we were not allowed to provide, or we were not given that authority by the Federal Transit Administration related to our grant. So we do have the ability to add some layers on that in the future. So that may be the long-term plan, but at least in the short term, this does augment the supply by about 150 spaces. So we're very pleased to have that happening. Also, as you well know, there's been some changes in the Portland Police Bureau, and Mike Leloff, our past Transit Police Division lead, is now has been kicked upstairs, if you will, into the Sheath's office. And we're very pleased to have on board Sarah Westbrook, who was a former commander of the Central Precinct, coming to manage the TPD. And now we'll bring her here at your meeting in August for an actual introduction. But I just wanted to let you know that that change in management of the Transit Police Division is taking place. Very pleased to have Sarah on board. She's a very, very accomplished officer, very obviously managing the Central Precinct makes her very aware of the importance of transit and the importance of keeping public transit safe. So just to note that change is underway. I also just wanted to note in your correspondence, we've included a memo that really described a potential property purchase that we have underway, which is for something we've called the Hogan Yard, which is in Board Member Stovall's district, and it's right at the end of the light rail alignment at Hogan. And it's a site that we think has a great deal of opportunity for us. We're in a due diligence phase. If we recommend purchase, we'll be bringing that to the board at your September meeting. But in the meantime, should you have questions on it, on the due diligence aspects, on the utilization of it, please let me know. We think it's a very high opportunity for us to augment maintenance space. And as we get to the bus contract later in the agenda, that's one of the opportunity areas that we see as we advance the growth of our system. And with that, I wanted to call up Dee Brookshire for a quarterly finance report. Again, we have the year-end numbers in. These are not the audited numbers, but I wanted Dee to share with you general conclusions for the fourth quarter.
Good morning, President Warner and members of the board. I am happy to be here to give you this very preliminary end-of-the-year report. It's our fourth quarter report and also our fiscal year 16 results. Just going to go, Neil wanted a short report, so we're going very briefly through this, but we're going to start with the financial highlights. Total revenue was below budget by $2.8 million, or less than 0.5%. Total operating expenses were below budget by $19.3 million, 4.1%. Net results from operations were better than budget by $16.5 million. So let's talk about revenues.
Is there
Sorry?
a reason why the operating expenses were down?
Yes, and we'll get to that in just a minute.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So we'll start with revenues. So the payroll tax revenue was 2% above budget at $6.3 million, but it actually grew 9.5% compared to the same time frame last year. So we were almost on the mark with our budget. It just exceeded that just a bit. Passenger revenue was a little bit down, 1.3% lower than budget, or $1.6 million, and this was in the ticket revenue area. Now here are the expenses. Our system operating expenses, 3.3% under budget, or $14.7 million. 9.9 million of that was in the operations division. The personal services were under by 2.4, but the diesel fuel expense was the real driver, and that was under by 8 million. Now, we've changed that in the fiscal year 17 budget. We've reduced the budget expectation by 5 million, which we think is still very conservative. The operating project expenses that feed into that variance for repairs and maintenance of existing infrastructure was also $4.5 million under budget. That's more timing. We expect that those funds will be expended. Preliminary net results since June 30th of 2015. Total current assets increased by $79.9 million. Non-current assets, that's the value of property and equipment, increased by $32.9 million. Total liabilities increased by $43.5 million. Now, there are many calculations and comparisons that go into these net results, these net numbers, and quite a bit of that information is in the report that you received, but I'm just hitting the highlights here. So our statement of net position, which is our total assets and deferred outflows compared to total liabilities and deferred inflows of our agency resources, resulted in our TriMet net position maintaining it's pretty much all year position of about just under $2 billion. The unrestricted net position is 141.4 million. This is where we keep our reserves, our 2.5 months of operating expenses. And that brings us to our last slide of any questions.
That was high level, that's very good.
I have just one quick question, and just help me remember on the increase in the payroll tax revenue. Is any of that the increase?
Yes.
Or is it just growth in
Well, it's a
employment?
combination of growth in the base plus the growth since January 1st of our new increment.
Okay.
Now,
Great,
there's
thank you.
more information in your report. There are sections on general fund debt service, statement of capital contributions, and capital expenditures, statement of net position, more information on that, and our investment portfolio. So, but this is about as brief as I can get it for a preliminary.
That was very brief, appreciate it. So first off, I just want to comment, it's nice, really nice to see the revenue projection being that close. That's testament to staff and again, our people advising us in terms of what we ought to be plugging into the budget. And I guess I'd say what I saw in terms of the reductions of the expenditures, project stuff, we understand that, and so that'll be reflected in next year's budget. Carryover will be doing that, so those monies will be expended. And the personal services, I don't know exactly why the personal services were down, but I assume maybe that was because we didn't have as many, or we hadn't filled.
Well, and Dee might have more details on this, but the fundamental reason is that when we fill new positions, they're at a lower rate. And so we have
Okay,
traditionally budgeted at the,
Perfect.
top rate, and so there's some, and there is a vacancy factor too. One of the things I know Dee and Nancy Young are looking at is, should we be including a vacancy factor when we budget? Because obviously, when you have nearly 3,000 employees, you're not going to have, or slots, not everybody's going to be there at the,
Perfect.
for the whole.
Pretty much that is the reason why. We actually do have a very modest vacancy factor in the operations side of the business, but that is carrying a fairly significant position vacancy factor, annually. But with the hiring practices that are underway right now, I really expect that to shrink over the next year.
Excellent. Other questions by the board? Thank you very much.
Sure.
And I might just add to that one of the other things that we do is over the year, we do look at our, for example, apprenticeship flows and we'll make adjustments in the number of positions in order to, or people we're bringing in order to make sure that we're ultimately on track to that FTE number that you have approved in the budget. But there is some general variation in that. An example is I just approved bringing on 6 additional service workers for the light rail system that will ultimately be eligible for the apprenticeship program, but just to begin to make sure that our sourcing for all of these very important skilled trades are full at this stage of our development.
Anything else, Mr. General Manager?
No, that concludes my report. Thank you very much, unless there are questions the board may have.
I'm seeing none. I think we're going to move right into our consent agenda then. So next on the agenda is consent agenda, and for those watching or anybody in the audience that hasn't been here before, the items appearing on our consent agenda are considered to be routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. However, any board member may remove an item from the consent portion of the agenda for discussion or questions by requesting such action prior to consideration of this portion of the agenda. And I point out that we have 4 items on our consent agenda today. First is approval of the board's meeting minutes from June 22nd, 2016, a resolution authorizing modification to a contract with David Evans and Associates for conceptual and technical plan development services for the Southwest Corridor Transit Project. Very important project the region is looking at. There's a resolution authorizing a contract with Trapeze Software Group for paratransit scheduling software, which is some of the software we have right now. And then the final one is a resolution authorizing a contract with AMEC Foster Wheel Environment and Infrastructure for industrial hygiene consulting services. So with that, is there any item on the consent agenda a board member would like to have be removed for separate consideration or has questions? Seeing none then, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none then, all those in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Let's move on to our resolutions. The first resolution is Resolution 16-07-50, which is authorizing a contract with Gillig LLC for purchase of fixed-route buses for fleet replacement and service expansion. Kind of excited about this one, Mr. General Manager.
Mr. Board President, members of the board, I'm kind of excited about this one too. And I'd actually like, just in advance, to ask Greg Haley, who manages this procurement, to come forward in anticipation of questions and at least additional information, because we want you very educated about our Gillig LLC contract and the buses. But there, of course, as you well know, and with your support, we have really geared up the bus replacement program at TriMet, and we now have a fleet that is very close to our goal of no bus older than 16, average age of 8 years. We're still a little bit over that, but we're very pleased with our ability to actually replace the fleet, make sure that it's modern, up to date. And that has resulted in some very dramatic improvements in customer service, many fewer failures in service, many fewer, frankly, dead buses by the side of the road. Road calls have been reduced. Our mean distance between failures has increased in a very admirable way. So there have been some real, I think, definite improvements in customer service related to the new fleet and new vehicles, plus, of course, offering fully air-conditioned, fully low-floor fleet, which hopefully is appreciated by our customers as well. But the really important thing about this contract is not only does it continue that fleet replacement program where we essentially retool our fleet 1/16 at a year. So every year we have to buy 1/16 of our fleet again related to replacement. But it also authorizes the numbers that are associated with the payroll tax increase and the growth of service that we'll be seeing over the next 5 years. So it's a very, I think, important contract in that regard. It signals that we will be growing our bus service as well as maintaining a very desirable age for our fleet itself. This was, I think, a very desirable procurement. I think we all wish there were more manufacturers in the market, but this was exactly what we expected, which is two very qualified proposers, Gillig LLC and New Flyer Industries. We can go through the details of the procurement. I also see Dan Caulfield here who's ready to answer questions as well. But long and short of it is that Gillig not only was best in terms of its price, but also highest ranked proposer in terms of the quality of the bus and the responsiveness to our requests. I also note that our last contract was with Gillig, although we do have an ongoing relationship with New Flyer because some of our existing fleet continues to be New Flyer. So we continue to have a strong relationship with New Flyer, and I think a very good relationship with them. Again, what we found in this case is that Gillig was much more responsive to our requirements in the proposal and also related to the price. One of the nuances of this procurement is that when we started out, we were also looking for authority for 30-foot buses and 60-foot buses. And as you saw perhaps in the resolution, we did not get responses from both proposers on 30-foot or 60-foot buses. We sort of had a crisscross in terms of who was providing which. And so our view was that that was not giving us necessarily the confidence we were going to get the best price out of this. Further, as we looked at the actual requirements of a fleet, we've determined that we do not need 30-foot buses in the short term because we've just purchased a large number of them. Additionally, we have extended the Powell Division project by 1 year, so that gives us a little time to go do another competitive procurement for 60-foot buses, should that be the selected technology for the BRT project. So that then, when we asked for best and final offers, we were really just looking for both diesel buses and hybrid buses, 40-foot. So we had good, strong apples-to-apples comparison between the two proposers. And with that, we have experts here, both on the procurement, Mr. Caulfield, and on the technology, Greg Haley, who also manages our Powell Garage maintenance staff. Happy to answer any questions, but we clearly are very pleased with this outcome and recommend approval.
Questions on the staff report? And this one was a very thorough staff report. Gave us a lot of good information.
Right, I don't have a question, but a comment. Yes, I was going to say that the memo that was provided to us was very clear, and I appreciate that, because this is a complex issue with regard to the planning for future deliveries and so on. So thank you for a very clear report to us.
One question in regards to the components that will be on buses. There are some of the buses that are being proposed to be brought in without any of the components, the computers, the fare boxes, and those types of things. But as we move forward into the future years, what's going to be the status or anticipated status of what some of those components are going to be looking like, given that technology is changing?
One of the things you bring up is our fare revenue system. It's still in service. We have some that are being refurbished, so we have a ways to go, but we have a big fleet too, so that's a pretty large decision on where to go with that. We're up to date with our radio systems in it, and that's pretty current. We are getting very current now with a new CCTV security system, which is being implemented and adjusted and integrated as it goes along. So I don't see too many changes there in that technology. We're running a very good ramp today, our LU18, which is better suited to our customers, helps our operators operate the vehicle better, more timely. We have a pretty sophisticated vehicle. When you put our bids out, we were asking for quite a bit, and we ask for a lot of ergonomics for our operators. When working with the BOSSA committee, get a lot of input from them. We were recently looking at mirrors, better mirror profiles for both for vision and for not having a blind spot. We're going to see a lot of changes coming in our Wi-Fi technology, and a lot of these systems will be downloadable through the Wi-Fi. That'll be for our e-fare, that'll be for our surveillance systems, access to the Portland Police Departments, things like that on a case-by-case basis. So I think a lot of our technical changes are going to be in our infrastructure and how our vehicles will communicate with that infrastructure.
I might perhaps, Greg, just also, I know there are anticipated changes in what we provide once the bus is in Portland versus what is built in by Gillig, and maybe just elaborate on that.
Okay. Our fare boxes, we do recycle them, use them again, keep them maintained, so our vendors don't wish to put used devices in a bus because then they're not sure what the problem is, why it doesn't work. So we contract with our suppliers to provide a subcontractor in Portland who then installs our fare boxes and things like that. And then we reinstall our radio systems using a different vendor, Day Wireless, who will install them and certify and commission our radios and stuff. So that's why we don't get all of our products in the buses we buy from the vendors. But also now we have two options, two methods that we use. We have a replacement schedule that Neil spoke to, 1/16 per year of the fleet, and we have an expansion fleet. And under our expansion fleet, we do request a new radio and those devices from the vendor. And that way our inventory that we use to maintain the system doesn't get depleted. So we have two modes of operation there. That also requires two separate builds, two Buy America reports.
Did you get that answer?
Got that.
Okay.
So you referenced some of the requirements that we have that we requested. I know a couple of things you referenced have been some of the things that have come up in some of the public comment in regards to the ergonomics of the buses and the seats and some of the things like that, but then also the mirrors we've heard quite a few times. So has Gillig been pretty responsive to those requests, and how much of that has been incorporated because of the operators responding and asking for these adjustments? Have we been able to incorporate in this group of buses? Because this looks like a pretty long commitment. We want to make sure we get it right and they get it right.
Not only do the requests that the operators make for the BOSSA committee, which I attend their meetings, everything on it says Haley, Haley, Haley. But everything that they request, it goes into our future builds, into our specifications. Many of the things that they've requested went into a major project that Mr. McFarland funded when we retrofitted our existing 3000s going backwards. So we've had a progression as we get bus orders of making improvements to the operator's work environment, but then we've also backtracked and brought the previous ones up to date. So it's an ongoing process, but, and a lot of it's is about an ergonomic study that TriMet provided about the vehicles, and it's getting things into the 24 and 21-inch reach because it's repetitive motion. We increased a lot of that when we put in ticket transfer printers. The devices were, and the monitors were way up on the dash, and we need to bring that closer. Steering wheel size was an issue, and it was a broad issue, so the BOSIT committee was able to make a determination and agreement on what size is proper, and that fit along the ergonomics line. Switch locations on the floor, for floor switches, things like that, were debated, made a change. It wasn't a desirable outcome for the operator, wasn't making it as comfortable as the ergonomics report described. We moved that back. But so we had a large list, maybe about $1 million worth of processes, projects, parts, subcontracted work to be done. Some of that work was offered to the ATU as well. They did that in-house. So it was a good outcome. It's made a lot of improvements, and we've been in discussions with both manufacturers that we deal with permanently for a long time to work on the ergonomics for our operator. So.
Excellent, thank you.
And Gillig has been very responsive.
And I believe, wasn't someone from Gillig Leadership here recently and met with our team? It sounded like
Yes.
a really good opportunity for us to talk to top leadership. I think it was the CEO, but I could be wrong.
You were right. The CEO was here.
I do read your emails.
Last week, and actually here, Lee Peterson is the Northwest representative for Gillig, and we're pleased to have him here with us today, too, if there are any questions for him.
Excellent.
But we do have, I think, a very strong working relationship with Gillig, and I think they see us as an important customer, and actually our pitch to the CEO is just like in some other modes, we're happy to be both a guinea pig and an experimenter in trying to improve bus technology and the comfort and ride for both our operators and our customers. So I think we delivered that question, that comment directly to the top.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I guess that prompts a question for me. With the focus on ergonomics, do we track whether workers' comp claims are affected as ergonomic improvements occur?
I can't speak to that.
Actually, in the results that Berkshire just presented to you on the personal services side, a component of that underage is workers' compensation expense for the district fiscal 16 less than budget. I think it was about $2.5 million. That's a possible agency, but the major components are drivers.
And I would just note that's an incredibly important topic to me. And both Dee and Harry are working on making sure that we have a very closed loop between potential when injuries occur and improvements in our workplace or our tools that might have contributed to that injury, so that we make sure we squeeze that out of the system as effectively and as efficiently as we can. We're always working on that, always trying to improve that. But I think Dan's right. We've seen some very good results over the last year.
The trend year over year has been less workers' compensation expense.
Terrific, thank you.
That is excellent.
Well, seeing no more questions, is there a motion to approve Resolution 16-07-50?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, then all those in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 16-07-50, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. And this is exciting. I'm glad to see our bus fleet continue to get more, or I guess, less old. And so let's move on then to Resolution 16-07-51, which is authorizing a contract with Skanska USA Building, Inc. for construction manager / general contractor services for the Powell Lift relocation project. General Manager.
Mr. Board President, members of the board, if I could ask Steve Witter to come up, who is our new Executive Director for Capital Projects. I wanted to make sure that you were introduced to Steve, if you haven't been already. But I would also note that this is a contract authorization to use a CMGC system, or actually to award a contract to a CMGC contractor for the relocation of the lift base from the current site of the Powell Garage across the freeway to underutilized park and ride space at the Powell Park and Ride. Again, the importance of this is that what we need to do, we have a series of dominoes. So we need to move the Powell lift facility off the site of the bus base so that we have some elbow room to begin the remodeling and expansion of the Powell garage for additional capacity, as well as just frankly bringing it up to modern standards. So we have a series of projects. They are linked domino to domino, and this is the first of the construction projects that will be associated with the Powell garage reconstruction. Our goal ultimately is to both increase the capacity for our lift system, which this project will do, as well as increasing the capacity and efficiency of our Powell garage maintenance facility, and improve dramatically the report areas for our operators as well. So again, what I would note is that this was a very competitive proposal with a number of very familiar names to us in terms of the competitors, strong contractors that we've worked with before in all cases. And the recommendation is to award the contract to Skanska. Again, what we will actually begin to see is a pre-construction services amount of about $35,900, and then we'll come back to you once we've negotiated the final price that will add the construction value to the contract. But this is the award essentially with that. And I've just asked Steve if there's anything else you'd like to add at this point.
I don't think so. I just want to reiterate that this CMGC delivery model is one that we've used on many projects, many contracts. It also allows us to maximize our subcontracting opportunities and really reach out and create opportunities for small and disadvantaged firms. So real advantage to the CMGC process.
Great. Questions by the board?
I do have
Yes.
a question. So this is an authorization for just a very small initial piece of the project. Will there be a competitive process for the next stage?
This is the competitive process for this stage. Essentially, it's a qualifications, heavily weighted towards the qualifications end of it. So we've looked at firms that are able to deliver these kinds of projects and selected, again, based on their ability to deliver. We bring these firms in early so that we're able to use the knowledge and expertise of the contractor and the construction team to influence the design so that we're actually working together to optimize the pricing as we move forward. So in terms of more competitive pricing for the overall contract, no, but we do have the ability to have the CMGC contractor bid out individual bits of work if we feel like the price isn't competitive in the market.
And I would just add to that we match that with a very independently but very detailed estimate of what the construction cost should be, and ultimately we compare that to the value that the contractors provided us. And that usually prompts a very hard series of negotiations, frankly, with the contractor in terms of trying to get alignment. And my experience, and I think Steve's as well, is that as we do that, we actually learn more about the project. We learn why the contractor thinks the price is high, and we say, no, this is, the specs are different, or the understanding of the specs is different. And so we get much better alignment with the contractor and our expectations as we go through that process. But we also, through that process, are ensured that the public has very high value for the dollar spent.
So this is just in follow-up with Director Bauman's question. I'm not quite sure I understand fully what we're approving here. We normally, I understand, I'm just wondering if we're approving the CMGC process for this procurement, because ultimately, of course, the value doesn't exceed that, but I'm assuming that the value of the total project is going to exceed.
That's correct.
The budget, but not the budget, but the identified amount of $500,000. But I guess I'm a little confused, because ultimately, unless we kind of know some ballpark of what the ultimate projection could be, unless we're just really approving the CMGC component, the value at this point doesn't really mean anything to the board in the sense that we don't normally approve things of this size. And I know that was a really jumbled way of asking the question, but hopefully you were able to translate.
Right. So that's you hit on it at the very start, which is that ultimately this contract will be over the $500,000 threshold for the board. So that's why we wanted to bring it to you at this early stage so that you had a view about where we were. And this was preceded by your authority to use the CMGC process for this project. That was actually approved April.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
So what we will do then is, should you approve this, then we will continue to work with SCANSA, pay them the $35,900 in the pre-construction phase, and come back to you at a certain point in time and add the construction value. And at that point in time, we'd demonstrate the value of the contract, its comparison to our actual construction cost. Steve, you may be able to answer the question about this. I was just scanning the expected price of the overall.
I'm going to have to ask Dan Sovsnowski to nail that one for us.
Okay.
It looks like about $6 million.
Yeah.
okay. Because, I mean, ultimately, I understand, and I thought we'd looked at this before in the CG, because that's not what's focused here, is because the CMGC process, I thought we already talked about it, and that wasn't what was being approved here. That's why I had the confusion. I'm still a little bit, not necessarily confused at this point, but I'm not quite sure, as a board member, why we would approve this, per se, at this time. Because at some point, then we're gonna bring back an additional item that's going to allow us to have an adjustment to this approval that approves the full amount.
Right.
But I'm still not really clear on why, as a board, we would approve this at this time.
I would just note, I think, and I'll ask Ms. Devine to respond, but it has been our practice that if we know the contract is going to go over the board threshold, we bring it to you at the first step. And that's transparency, other reasons, I think, to do that.
He just said what I was going to say to you.
You're right. You probably wouldn't automatically have to, but we think it's best practice if we know that it's going to go over that amount to make sure that you're aware of that and take this separate, if you will, at the outset.
We don't like to, as you've said before, get ahead of our skis, in that we presume that you'll subsequently approve a contract that's going to go into your limits, above our limits. So if we know at the outset that it is eventually going to exceed that, we do come to you at the outset. We first came to you and asked for you to approve the exception so that we could go through the CMGC process. We've done that. Now we've done that. We're coming back to you to tell you that now we're going to move into phase 1, if you will, but there will be a phase 2.
And I just got a couple more follow-ups, just for additional clarity. So ultimately, I think why this is something that feels like an anomaly is because normally we don't have, the initial portions of a project of this size where the initial component is this low. Although, if I remember correctly, we did have a situation in the reverse where we did approve something and then it did come in higher after the fact, and I think some of the board members had an issue with that. I think I also was one of them. So I think this is one of the first times we're seeing it, in this process orientation where. But my major concern is then if we give approval to something, it would still have to come back through the board for that. We couldn't just go from a $35,900 fee and the total of what's being presented here. We could go forward with a $6 million component of that unless it comes back through the board.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had that clarity.
No, good questions. And I guess the way I view this is we've looked at all of the qualified builders that we have here, and for various reasons, based on the evaluation teams, look at their proposals and qualifications. They've said Skanska should be the person or the firm that does our CMGC work. So I think we want to get them started to actually come up with the packages and how they want to put this project together to ensure that it's done properly, quickly, and get the best bang for the buck. So you'll come back as they do that work. So I actually kind of like having this initial phase to us, and they'll be coming back with the bigger package outlining how they're going to do it how they're going to ensure that diversity is a part of the decisions in terms of sub-consultants selections and subcontractor selections. So I'm comfortable with this. I think this is good. I like actually seeing this, getting them the money to get started and coming back with a bigger package. And if we run into trouble, then we need to confront that. This is a very good firm and have a lot of faith that they'll be able to deliver. Other questions? All right. Didn't mean to get on my bully pulp there, because I think they're good, and I think this is a good process. So is there other questions, comments from the board? Yes.
Well, no more questions. My questions and comments weren't in regards to it was more so our internal process. It didn't have anything to do with, I know Scansco, they do great work. I think all of these contractors do great work, of course. But essentially, for us and the folks that are watching and all the benefits, we have something that looks to be non-standard without the additional information of the potential $6 million. Not everybody can understand why is the board approving something that shows a total value that's significant below our, without that $6 million. I would say that ultimately, if we have the ability in the future, make reference to what that, if we've got a known estimate,
That's a good point.
we can capture that here so that we as a board feel comfortable.
Very good.
Kind of approving this level, knowing what's to come.
Excellent comment.
Yeah, I'm making that note right now.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. So with that explanation and answering of the questions, is the board ready to make a motion to approve resolution, I forgot the number now,
1607.
16-0751? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I hear a motion?
Second.
Have a second? Is there further discussion? And that was an excellent discussion, thank you. With that, then I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve resolution 16-07-51 signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is approved unanimously. All right, well, let's move on to our last resolution today, which is resolution 16-07-52, which is adopting the TriMet bike plan.
I was looking for Jeff Owen to come up, who has been the project manager on this. Mr. Board President, members of the board, you had a briefing on this plan last month. So I'll be relatively brief, but I think it's a very important element in the complete transportation system that we try to offer our customers and our riders. Jeff has been instrumental in working with a number of stakeholders and interest groups on a number of projects, and you might, of course, know that as we built the Orange Line, we tried to bring our bike infrastructure up to a whole new level. That plus our history of doing work on connections to transit, most importantly, the pedestrian network analysis that was done some years ago, led us to the conclusion that we really needed to do a more focused system-wide study on our bike facilities and how we connect cycling riders to our system and our work. And so in that regard, we applied and were fortunate to receive a TGM grant, Transportation Growth Management, from ODOT to actually put this plan together. We've had both consultant assistants as well as an advisory group working with us. Again, we think it's a very important element of beginning to standardize our approach to really welcome cyclists onto the TriMet system, but also to help us manage the load of bikes on the TriMet system, which is both a positive and at times a concern for us in terms of the space and other safety aspects of that. So with that, we again undertook a bike plan. The recommendations are included in your packet and again were covered in your briefing. But there are a number of initiatives that I think fall from this. As I noted, more standardized thoughts about facilities, some priority areas for improvement, some experimental actions, like can we begin to think about a 3-position bike rack on some buses? Those kinds of things that we want to try may not work, but we know we need to try in order to be a friendly, accommodating system to riders that access us through cycling. And with that, I turn to Jeff and see if he had other comments that he'd like to add to you.
That was well stated. Just one quick addition would be the plan itself, of course, does not commit us to any certain projects or expenditures. It does give staff direction to work with our partners on a short list of priorities. So that will, of course, we do have near-term recommendations and long-term recommendations to work towards, but this plan itself is not any certain capital expenditure of any sort.
Questions?
I do have a question, and this might be totally different, but I'm seeing these new orange-looking little things popping up across the city everywhere.
Yes.
Supposing there are ways in which they can be rented. And but my question goes to this: when we talk about bike sharing, will this plan include anything of something like that being in close proximity to any of TriMet's properties? I know we provide the places for our customers and riders to park their own bikes, to carry their own, but I'm just wondering now if trying to reduce the amount of bikes on buses or on trains, if I leave my bike in Gresham, when I get downtown to Pioneer Square, if I need a bike, is it going to be something close by that then will make it so I don't have to bring my bike, but if I still need my bike to travel, then I'm going to have to bring it down with me. So that's my question. Long
Yes.
way of getting to it, but that's the question.
Absolutely. That's a great case of what we hope the partners at the City of Portland with Bike Town that launched, I guess it was last week. That's a perfect case of what we hope our riders will be able to do is leave a bike on one end, possibly where they start the origin of their trip, park it in one of our facilities or somewhere else, hop on board, and then use something like bike share on the other end of their trip, or a normal bus or walking, etc. So that is a great case. We have been working in partnership with the City of Portland and Bike Town to be the best partner that we can to date with the launch last week. And we will continue to do so to look for opportunities to make that combination of trips attractive to customers.
I might just add that as the Bike Town was launched, I was very fortunate to be there at the launch in a very wobbly ride across across the Telecom Crossing. But the city is absolutely aware and committed to this connection between transit and the bike share system. And we know that that's both locational in terms of where the facilities, the bikes are actually, the stations are located. Ultimately, it is also related to the payment mechanism. So our goal ultimately, and this is one of the objectives that was part of the city's Smart Cities initiative, which we did not succeed on, but used actually it to develop some really terrific ideas, is integrating that with the HOP fare card ultimately, so that we have one mechanism for payment of a complete trip, if you will. So those are interesting innovations that we'll be working on in the future with the city. I'd also just note that Nike sponsorship of this is, first of all, very, very generous, and I think we're very lucky to have Nike as a partner. But they're also really excited about the potential for this system to serve their campus. And that has been one of the key things and projects that Jeff has been working on is additional improvements between our Beaverton Creek station and through what used to be known as Nike Woods, when we would develop the West Side Light Rail project, directly to the campus. And the hope is that there's actually there actually is a bike share system that Nike runs, but a more orange bike-like a system actually replicated out there in Beaverton to access the Nike campus. We think that's a great model for some of the suburban destinations as well. They built this new trail. It's well lit. It's got security. We've created a new pathway across our trackway and system to connect to it. So those are the kinds of improvements that I think we'll likely see moving forward. And so we're really excited about that partnership, and actually having Nike as a very important partner, and that's been really quite key.
So what I'm hearing is this Nike Town or a bike share program like this could be one of the solutions to the last mile.
That would be exactly right.
Yes.
And so the plan is then to maybe have these kind of facilities at every one of the major transit stops on the light rail?
We'd love to see it extend. I think the city and everyone would tell us we need to walk before we run.
Yes.
So
I'm just saying that would be.
that would be an objective that
one
I think we would share, and I think the city would, and the other cities around our region would share as well.
All right, and so Nike Town does allow bikes to be put on the TriMet system, and in fact, are encouraging that, it sounds like.
So actually, that's something we're currently working through, of course, with the launch of the system just last week. Our current code doesn't necessarily prohibit them from being brought on board because they are standard size bicycles. However, the Bike Town language and a rental agreement actually prohibits it from being brought on board the transit system. So again, the goal is to keep the bikes at one end of the trip or the other.
Gotcha. Okay, that's
we
what
have
I
enough on
wanted.
board already. So, right.
All right. Interesting. Yes, go ahead.
You know, I've had the opportunity to be involved with a bike share for probably the last 5 years, multiple trips back to DC, and utilization in the early stages, in the early phases. So it's it's incredible to see the progression where historically it was location based and the locking mechanisms were part of the actual bike racks, and now they have the payment mechanisms and all the lock mechanisms actually on the bike, so it's going to be interesting to see the progression of that. You know, Dr. Bethel referenced, at what point can you access the bike and you get to this end, is there going to be something available? And so like right now, most of the bike locations are located in downtown Portland. I live in Gresham, the new Lake Oswego. So
I haven't heard that one before.
I've heard it before.
So it's by having it more so connected to the bike itself, the future of that opportunity can be, it doesn't, and they allow it to some degree if there's a certain level of not a certain level, but if the bike rack is full and there's a normal bike rack that's close, you can actually attach it to that and not have to pay anything additional, which then that could actually lend itself well to some of the places where you may not have as much usage, but yet you can actually take a bicycle to that location from the end of the line and still be able to utilize it, and where they don't have to make as much of an investment to light up new opportunities. They can test it in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully, with TriMet's assistance and help, that we can utilize some of our facilities to make a designated locking point so that we can again facilitate utilization of these new bikes across the region. But it's, I use it a lot when I go to DC, just because it's so convenient, and rarely do I get to a location and there's not a place to lock the bike up. I think that's happened to me once in all the times that I've used it there in I think in one other city. So it's a great addition. I'm really excited to see it here, and I think it's going to do wonders for getting us to that last mile conclusion and solution for our transit riders here through the region. But again, I think being able to have it bicycle based rather than location based specifically, it's going to be beneficial.
Great. Yeah, and that's a great point that with the technology being on the bike, there's already really great data about exactly where people are starting and ending trips.
Mm.
So we'll be working with the city and Bike Town to take a closer look at those possibilities in the future.
Other questions on the bike plan? Is the board ready to offer a motion to approve resolution 16-07-52?
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those then in favor of the motion to approve resolution 16-07-52, which is adopting the TriMet bike plan, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing how all this evolves in the next few months and years. All right, so I see nothing more on our business agenda. Is there anything more come before the board today?
No, sir, unless there are questions from you or other board members.
Anything else from the board? Okay, with that, I'm going to adjourn our business meeting. I will point out we have a briefing agenda, which is in room C, which is the one to our left over here. We have an update on Ride Connection. Lane Wills is going to be giving us that update. And then some other general manager items I think you want to update us on. So I think we can probably take, do we need full 15 minutes or maybe a 10-minute break and then head in there?
10 minutes.
All right, 10 minutes. We'll be next door in 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you have seen many times in the past, actually. You've seen grants and other allocations to Ride Connection, and I think we've continued to tell you what a tremendous partner Ride Connection has been to us in terms of providing really terrific services to a very diverse community, particularly focusing on seniors and people with disabilities. And in that regard, they have been just an incredible partner for us over a long period of time. And so it's my pleasure to introduce, frankly, a colleague and friend, Elaine Wells, who actually, I understand, has been with Ride Connection for 26 years.
Wow.
And she can even tell you a little bit about the birth of Ride Connection. But believe it or not, it was one of those things that sort of popped out of some brains at TriMet and a number of other nonprofit organizations at the same time, of providing a single source space for nonprofits to coordinate the efforts of providing services to seniors and people with disabilities. So we've continued to have a very strong connection with Ride Connection, and we will continue to, I'm sure, as long as certainly the performance has been as great as it has been over the last few years, last 26 years. So with that, I'd turn it over to Elaine, who can introduce the rest of her team here.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to come back and talk to you. The last time we shared an update with you was in September of 2014, when you came out to our new facility and held a board meeting out there. So we're excited to give you an update on all of the services that we're providing to you. I'm going to introduce the folks with me. Instead, always before when I've come, years past, I've been like a talking head for a half hour. Mm-hmm. And this time I want you to hear from our experts at Ride Connection about all the great things that we're doing. So with me today, in the order in which they're going to speak, is Alex Page, who is a service planner, and he's going to be talking about our new community connectors that we're doing with you. And then I'll share a little bit of information about fare assistance. And Mike Mullins, our mobility director, will be talking about our transportation options. Pam Monahan, our volunteer outreach specialist, will be talking about our volunteer transportation program. Julie Wilkie, our chief operating officer, will be sharing about some of our demand response services. Emily Motter, our development director, will be sharing about fund development. And I'll close with a few words about the advocacy efforts that we're doing in partnership with TriMet. So as Neil said, I've been with the organization an awfully long time, but the organization is actually 30 years old. We started as a project of TriMet's 30 years ago. Neil Blumenauer, Earl, I'm sorry. You can tell I'm nervous. Earl Blumenauer was a city councilman at the time, and he was on a citizens committee that helped design what became eventually known as Ride Connection. We incorporated in 1988 as a private nonprofit, so we kind of celebrate 2 anniversaries, with the idea that as a nonprofit, we could serve individuals differently than a public transit agency could, enhancing or complementing what you all do, and also raising funds that, from private foundations and from individuals that, again, a public agency might not be able to have the flexibility to do as we do. So we incorporated then as a private nonprofit. We serve many different types of demographics. We serve older adults, people with disability, those living on a low income. We provide service outside the TriMet area to rural general public folks, and then to commuters.
So our community connectors are all deviated fixed route services that are designed to help with first, last mile gaps in the system. These typically serve commuters, but we target seniors, people with disabilities, and low income workers specifically. They also provide local service in areas where TriMet really can't reach. With our planning, support, capital, and capital from communities and local governments, we're able to implement a service that kind of suits the community's needs, which can often be very specific. Our small buses are certainly better equipped to navigate different terrain that TriMet might not necessarily see as easy. And our entire fleet is ADA accessible, reducing the need for complementary paratransit. Our targeted outreach, limited schedule and service, and our smaller scale and operations also allows us to have a lower cost to operate these services. So we currently have 4 in operation, and the first one that we did was the Washington County Community Bus, which was launched in June 2010. It's a rural service that links people from Forest Grove to Banks, North Plains, and the Hillsborough Transit Center. The connections that it makes there include Tillamook County's WAVE, a couple TriMet services, as well as the MAX, and our own GroveLink. The ridership for this service is about 2,200 trips a year. GroveLink connects residents and commuters with areas surrounding the main thoroughfare of Pacific Avenue, which is where TriMet Line 57 runs down. It's a deviated fixed route that provides local transportation options for nearly every household in Forest Grove. It started off strong with a 400% increase in the first couple months, from 156 riders the first week to 600 riders a week after that. Currently, we give upwards of 1,100 rides a week. Our total ridership for that is 46,000 rides a year, approximately. Our North Hillsborough link was launched just last year in November of 2015. It serves businesses north of Orenco Station and north of Highway 26 as well, which includes Reesers, Leica, SureID, Genentech, and dozens more, honestly. We worked very closely with the Hillsborough Chamber, which had been advocating for a service in that area for quite some time. Our ridership there is around 17,000 people to date, and again, we launched in November. It was similar to GroveLink, where the ridership increased exponentially in the first few weeks. It's hovering just under 3,000 rides a month right now. And our last one, the Tualatin Shuttle, it was a service that we inherited from the Chamber of Commerce. It's also a deviated fixed route service, which changing it over to a deviated fixed route service allowed us to have a service model that freed up more federal funds to continue operations. It serves AM and PM commute times for riders traveling on the west and a couple other bus routes, including the 96 and 76. Recently, we adjusted the routes to make room for the new line 97, Tualatin Sherwood, and allow us not to duplicate service, the new service that was running down Tualatin Sherwood. Current ridership there is around 25,000 rides a year. And I'll turn over to Mike.
Actually,
sorry.
it's back to
Go
me. So Ride Connection has worked with you all to provide fare assistance since May of 2013, when the transit fare was increased. And it was designed to help mitigate that increase in fare assistance. And it has been a tremendous program. And we really want to thank you for the opportunity to assist our low-income residents with fare assistance by providing grants to our partner agencies. We've worked with, or we are working with, 92 different organizations since its inception, and you all have granted a little over $3 million to assist low-income residents with their transit fare. And it has been remarkable. It really affects change for our low-income residents, and so I hugely thank you for that. We have a small pot of money where we can give assistance to individuals while they're getting connected to a social service agency. So the vision from the beginning was that if a person was connected to a social service agency, they could, you know, if they could get rent assistance, say, or maybe get connected with food stamps or energy assistance, then they could maybe afford their transit fare. But it allows an agency to look holistically at a person's needs and what is available to them in the community, and then provide fare assistance. So if someone isn't connected to a social service agency, we can provide up to 2 weeks of fare assistance while our travel options counselors are helping them get connected. So it is a fantastic program, and it's a little known program. So that's why I really wanted to call it out today, because you really are affecting change by having this program, this robust program. So thank you very much.
So Ride Connection works to support the health of the regional transportation system through providing travel options and information to people over the age of 60 and also for people with disabilities. Our services are aimed at achieving one goal, and that's to create independence and community connections through travel options. We work with an existing framework of community and social service partners to pair individuals with the most appropriate and least restrictive mode of transportation available. Experience teaches us that approach to service provision is not only cost effective, it also helps to reduce the demand on the more costly paratransit service. So this means that often we're pairing individuals with information and referral services with transit with travel training supports that can be received individually or in a group setting. It could also be community shuttles, demand response service, or volunteer-based transportation. Our travel options counselors that Elaine mentioned a moment ago serve as the primary point of contact for all new Ride Connection customers to ensure that we're connecting them with the most appropriate service in the region for their needs. Each of the counseling sessions is comprised of a series of open-ended questions designed to facilitate dialogue. And our hope is always to uncover the true nature of the needs, abilities, and also the mobility goals of each customer served. I think we should be on the travel training slide. There we go. Excuse me. So travel training is designed to empower individuals to utilize the fixed route system safely through one-on-one or group travel training. The RideWise Travel Training and Mobility Support Program produced 269 new independent travelers through fiscal year 2016. Those 269 travelers represent 57,000 fixed route boardings and nearly 900,000 in net cost savings. The return on investment this year continues to be a little bit better than 2 to 1. As of fiscal year 2014, it was estimated that the RideWise Travel Training Program saved TriMet approximately $26.8 million since program inception in the fall of 2004.
And my name is Pam, and I have the best job at Ride Connection. I'm a little biased, but it's true. So I get to work with our volunteers. And as you heard, volunteers were there at the foundation of Ride Connection as we know it. And volunteers really are at the heart of everything that we do. We have volunteers working in every aspect of the organization, whether it be taking older adults out on group trips on public transportation that are led by volunteers, kind of make it more comfortable, get them familiar and comfortable, or any aspect of what we do at Ride Connection, from our board all the way through the organization. Volunteer engagement is critical. So we partner with a variety of different organizations, and one of the beauties of that is that we believe that people know their neighborhoods. People know the culture of their neighborhood, they know the makeup of the neighborhood, they know the people, they know their way around the neighborhood. And so one of the wonderful things about working with all of the partner agencies is that we are able to find volunteers from within the neighborhood. So people will step forward and they want to drive a neighbor to dialysis or to get home from cancer treatment, or to the senior center or to the grocery store. We have a lot of veterans that volunteer to drive other veterans. But it's wonderful to be able to receive that high level of customer service on a ride from someone who knows your neighborhood and knows where the restaurants are and who the high school sports team is. So we really want to make sure that people who receive rides through Ride Connection get a very, very high level of personal, individualized customer service. And our volunteer drivers are doing it because they want to, because they love the people that we serve. So we do offer support and training for all of our volunteer drivers. And it's actually the same level of support and training that we offer for drivers that are part of our staff. So they all take the same courses: defensive driving, bloodborne pathogens, the best ride, which helps them really understand how to effectively serve people with different types of disabilities and be sensitive to what different people's needs are. So it's a beautiful thing when people rise up from within the community to help other people in the community. Right now in our network of partners, we have 1,073 drivers, and of them, 1/3 of them are volunteers. So about 340 people across our network of partners are helping provide that door-to-door type of service. And it's a wonderful way to help alleviate some of the burden that can come through all of the population that you serve through ADA paratransit. We're happy to take some of that and to provide some of those rides, not just as a cost saving, but to really support the work that you're doing. But we, in giving all of our volunteers that same high level of training, we're able to be very flexible with people. So whether somebody has an hour that they're able to provide a ride during their lunch break from work, or maybe it's a retired person that has half a day or a whole day to provide transportation, we're happy to work with them and draw from those pool of drivers to be able to get people out and get them connected, and keep people in touch with the things that they want and they need to do. So I know TriMet has been an invaluable partner in that, so thank you for that. And I can talk all day about our volunteers because I love that aspect of Ride Connection, but sometimes it's more powerful to hear it from people in their own words. So this is Dawn and Jaquita, and two of our favorite people, so I'll let them share. That's okay. More time with Dawn and Jaquita is a good thing. we're kind of big fans. So.
Well, while you're working on that, maybe I should start on the community shuttle program.
Okay.
I wanted to just talk a little bit about kind of our services that we offer and touch upon a little bit what Mike and Pam both said. So the services that we offer are really designed for the community members by the community members. So each area of town, the service that's offered may look a little bit different. It's based on what members in that community need, the services that are available in that community, the volunteers that we have for that community, as well as what options our customers need. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, if we could just show, that at the end, that will be fine. I wanted to talk a little bit about our community shuttles first. Again, we have many shuttles that have been developed over the years in different parts throughout the region, different parts of our communities throughout the region. They really vary in purpose and design based on what the needs of that particular area is. The shuttle options really enable us to provide service to multiple customers who have similar needs or similar destinations that they want to travel to. Some of our shuttles are designed really for multiple pickups where individuals are living in single-family dwellings and they have a common destination that they want to go to. Others are designed for residential facilities for customers that have a variety of needs but have a grocery trip that they want to go to or a thrift store that they want to visit. And so in those instances, there would be one pickup and multiple drop-offs. The most common trip purpose really on our community shuttles are getting people to mill sites and cultural specific activities at community centers. So one of the examples of that is Tuesday. ERCO has an ethnic meal as well as other activities for community members. And we have a shuttle that picks people up in the mid-Multnomah County area and takes them to ERCO and then brings them back home after they've had their meal as well as stayed for activities. Another example of a trip purpose that's commonly used in our shuttles is for grocery trips. So our grocery trip shuttles are really designed, unlike the one in Northeast Portland, we call our Rideabout, where it goes to not only the Urban League, where is a center for activities as well as meals, but also has grocery trips that it does, as well as they calendar at least once a month to the Red and Blue on McLaughlin, going down to the thrift store because that's an interest of the community members to get down to that thrift store that has some quality prices. Oftentimes, recreational outings are also calendared. So there's a picture at the bottom right-hand side where a group took a trip out to the Rainbow Trout Farm to get some fresh air and some fresh fish. All of our shuttles were really created in an environment so that we're engaging those that are on the vehicle. We're engaging the community members to be either volunteer or paid drivers, and we're developing a sense of community. Oftentimes these shuttles are really more than just a ride. It's getting people together with common interests or desires of places to go, and it's also assisting them to get out and about and know their community, their larger community. This really supports one of the big social determinants of health, and it reduces isolation for these individuals. Because these rides are grouped, the cost per hour is significantly lower than some of our other services, and both volunteer and paid drivers provide a wonderful experience for all. Some of our grocery shuttles even have supportive services to help people get their groceries on board and then up to their residential facility. I wanted to talk next about our demand response service. Again, as Mike mentioned, with the individuals that are calling us for supportive services, there's a variety of level of need. And so we wanted to make sure that we have different levels of service. So we're honoring and respecting the person's ability level and supporting them with the service that most commonly matches the experience that they need. So our demand response service really provides support at varying levels based on customers' need. We do everything from curb to curb to door through door and everything in between. We even have a family and friends program, so if you have a neighbor that's interested in becoming vetted as a driver, they can provide mileage we can provide mileage reimbursement for your neighbor, and you can coordinate transportation activities with your neighbor. The rides, again, in this system are provided by paid and volunteer drivers using either our fleet of accessible vehicles or volunteers providing trips in their own private auto. So numbers hot off the press for last fiscal year, which ended June 30th. And this is between the community connectors, the community shuttles, and the demand response service, was 558,000 rides. So our average cost for our network is a little over $17 per ride. Some is higher depending on the need, some is lower depending on how we can group trips to common destinations. The last estimate of cost savings to TriMet was done in 2014. So in 2014, Ride Connection provided about 430,000 rides, and the estimated cost avoidance to TriMet was about $4.2 million that year. So the next thing, and this is another video, so I'm hoping that this one works. We would like to show a video that really eloquently demonstrates the level of service we provide and what it means to those that we serve. So maybe I'll move on with innovation and research, and then you just let me know when that video is ready to go. That'd be wonderful. So just talking about innovation and research a little bit, I mean, we feel like as an organization, we have evolved over the years to really support what our community needs are and to really complement what TriMet is doing with moving the masses in our community. So really keeping up with that, we've tackled innovations and research in a way that is a little bit different than we've done in the past. So I wanted to focus on one particular project that we've been working on as of late. So keeping people healthy really involves more than just having healthcare options in our community. It really requires access to care and then that broader preventative supportive services that are available, which really includes high quality transportation to get to those areas that are needed. So about 3 years ago with federal funding, and it was through HHS, the Administration for Community Living, we embarked on this process to really determine what the true challenges were. And it was from the customer's perspective. What are the transportation challenges for you? And we focused on dialysis treatment. So treatment to dialysis, transportation needs to occur 3 times a week on an ongoing basis, week after week, in order to keep that person healthy and alive. Transportation to treatment from a transportation provider's perspective can be challenging. But from what we found is through the eyes of patients, it's even more challenging. So really what we did is we involved patients, healthcare providers, caregivers or health caregivers, as well as the dialysis community to see really what we could do to affect change. We are a year into a pilot project at one specific dialysis clinic, and we've seen really very positive results. We are expanding this to a second clinic, and we are utilizing this new model of research and higher quality engagement of those that are affected to really affect change, not only to allow us to get that information on what the challenges are, but to help us with the solutions too. So what we're doing now is really taking this new model of engagement and research and having quantifiable and qualitative data and moving that to a broader medical transportation program. So how can we again engage those that are affected by the services, as well as those that are providing healthcare in our community, to come up with some common goals and work collaboratively on addressing need. And this really goes beyond ongoing care for treatment, but also into the preventative care realm too. So this work really involves challenging the status quo, collaborating with healthcare systems, and educating everyone on how critical access is to really health outcomes. We are excited about the possibilities that have been identified and new partnerships that really have been developed through this amazing process. So, and one just a plug, in fact, we were invited to submit our findings to the Journal of Nephrology, the social worker edition. So we've been published in this year's summer edition, which is available on the National Kidney Foundation website. So we're very excited about that.
Good morning. So Ride Connection leverages public dollars by raising private funding. And so in addition to our individual donor base, we've really done some strategic work on building partnerships within the community. So for example, as Julie's talking about our medical transportation efforts, we've built a great partnership with Providence Health and Walmart that has resulted in some significant private funding to support those rides and efforts. In addition, we engage businesses, for example, in our annual fundraising gala. So Fred Meyer, for example, has been a longtime partner and supporter of Ride Connection on an annual basis. And then strategic board development is crucial to our fund development success as well. Our current board members have a wide range of business relations that they bring to our fundraising efforts, including banking connections, car sales, transportation professionals, and we're really excited to be welcoming 2 new board members in August, one with Ader Wynn and one also with Care Oregon, who again will help continue our efforts with building additional strategic partners in the healthcare field. And we are have a special thanks for Alan Leto and Hannah Ritchie for their board service as well. So we've seen significant growth in our fund development private funding in the last year, so are looking forward to growing that as well.
Are we ready? Should we watch? It's good timing for the video.
Yes.
This was shown at our last fundraising event.
Actually, this is...
I first connected with Ride Connection while Tanja and I were living at the Salvation Army Veterans and Family Center.
I suffer from panic disorder, and Donna was sick, and that was the hardest time in our life, harder than even the homelessness. And out of the blue, we found out that she had a tumor on her heart and had to have surgery. That went successfully, and she is better, but she needs the less stress, the better.
We don't have a car, so what kind of transportation is out there for us other than public transportation to take us to our appointments? Proudly served in the Air Force. Ride Connection was a way for me to deal with my PTSD.
And that's what Ride Connection does. It makes things less stressful, you know, for Donna and me.
And my surgeon's very happy that I have no stress.
Yeah, me too.
Having a ride to go to my doctor is very important to either of our doctors. Appointments are hard to come by at the Veterans Hospital, so I have to get there. Tanja has to get to her appointments because if you miss, there's no other time. Using Ride Connection is a blessing because I know I'll get there on time.
We couldn't believe it the first time. We kept saying, thank you for the ride, thank you, the whole way there. Mm-hmm. And then when we got back in, we were so grateful.
It's like somebody treating you well and you don't expect it. And so to know that when the phone rings and they say, your ride has been confirmed and Mary is gonna be your driver, that's nice.
Yeah.
My favorite part about driving is the people, the riders.
We have a good time. We talk. I enjoy doing it. It's a joy to help you.
The thing I like about Mary is she does not act put out. She understands disabilities. She understands that we have special needs regarding the temperature in the car, causing medicine and panic attacks, and we know her and she knows us, and it feels like a friend because she has said, I'll get you there.
It's more rider and driver. It's more than that. It's a friendship. Because whenever they get in the car, I say, so how's the grandbaby? How are you doing? And it's like that with all my riders. You make a connection.
We can depend on Ride Connection. We can depend on Mary. And that's enormous value.
It's more than a program. It's almost like there's an understanding that people care in a personal way. We get in Mary's car with her grandbaby seat in there, and that's a life. There is life going on. That's Ride Connection. That's not taxi service or public transportation. It's not. It's personal.
I'm retired. I'm a good driver. I have been all my life. I do a lot of RVing, so driving big rigs, things like that. And I saw an ad in the paper, it was many years ago, talking about Ride Connection needing volunteer drivers, so I applied. I've never regretted it.
Don is one of my favorite drivers. We've been driving together for years, and I feel like he's just extended family to me. I really do. He's just a wonderful guy and is always very helpful to me, and we always have a great time when we're riding together.
My favorite part, boy, there's so many, well, one, you get to meet so many nice people. And also knowing how much everybody appreciates getting to ride. Because if they didn't, they'd be in trouble. And I know it makes me emotional at times, too.
It's just so great because it enables me to get from point A to point B with wonderful people safely, and it just makes my life go so much easier. If I couldn't get a ride, I probably would be stuck taking a cab or at the mercy of finding rides from other people.
You just get a feeling of satisfaction knowing people appreciate what you're doing. I've got the time, I'm retired. This type of volunteering, the dispatchers make it so easy, I don't feel like it's a job. The way they work it, I get an email usually Tuesday or Wednesday in a week, and they'll say, Don, are there any days next week when you can drive? Well, then I look at my calendar, I say, yeah, well, put me down for any 2 days except blank and blank. And that works out fine. It's not like another job. It's something that I can do in my spare time.
If someone is looking for an opportunity to drive, I just think that you get so much out of it. It would be more than a volunteer opportunity and of helping someone. You would also get the joy of getting to meet people who will have this need of transportation and getting out around the community, but basically just the interaction that you would have with your passenger would be so meaningful to you as a driver, and it'd just be a wonderful way to give up your time.
So we just happen to have some volunteer driver forms here for you. So that's a hard act to follow, but I'll wind up talking a little bit about advocacy and obviously the importance of sustainable funding for transportation. So one of the things that we're doing, we work very closely with Aaron Deese from TriMet on is advocacy around sustainable funding. We work with a lot of other community partners as well, the Oregon Transportation Forum, ODOT, the Community Transportation Association of America. But our focus this year is going to be on creating a stable funding source in the next session of the legislature. So we'll be working very closely with you as a partner in ensuring that we have a successful outcome at the legislature this session. So we really want to thank you today for the opportunity to update you on the services that we're doing, and I hope you'll invite us back soon.
Wonderful presentation and wonderful videos too, by the way.
Thank you.
I have some comments. Any of the board members have some comments or questions? Dr. Bethel?
I've got one question, and I was hoping that that particular video was going to come back up. Is if the car, and it has a name across it. What does that name mean?
Did it say Project? I think it said Project Linkage.
No, it starts with a D.
Oh, Dahlia. Oh, that is our dialysis program, and Julie can talk a little bit about that. It was a very exciting process that we went through to come up with that name.
Okay.
So our advisory committee that is 50% patients, and it's made up of care providers and caregivers, they were really more than an advisory committee. They were really steering what the program should look like. They felt that it was important to be recognized as a program that wasn't like another program. So the committee we went through this process of determining, well, what should this name be? We couldn't put dialysis on the side of a vehicle because of HIPAA regulations, but no one really wanted that either. Patients, so much of their life is about end-stage renal disease and their health outcomes, and they really started focusing in on life and vitality and health and blossoming and happy things and color. And so they started talking about flowers, and they really felt that Dahlia it had the D, so we could maybe say it had something to do with dialysis, but it really was more about life and vitality and health. And it would attract people to look at it. It looks nothing like any of our other branding. And so people ask questions. And so they thought that would be a good way to talk about end-stage renal disease and dialysis too. And on our T-shirts, it actually says, "Ask us what it's about." So that's where that came from.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Just appreciate the update. Clearly, you can see by the nature of the videos that the work that this team does and the volunteers is pretty impressive, and it's pretty amazing the impact that it has on these lives. And as you look around the room during the video, you can see some folks getting emotional. I thought Bruce was getting ready to shed a tear himself.
You bet.
Maybe that was me, but just incredible work. And it's more than just work. It's a dedication. It's a passion. And you can see that and hear it in your voices as you talk about the great work you're doing. And you can also see it in the folks that we serve in this regard. So I want to thank you for your dedication and your efforts and everything that you do to assist. And it's always fascinating when we hear just the activity numbers. I think there was one number that was shared was 500,000 annually. I mean, just to have that type of high touch with that many people is impressive. So thank you for your great work.
I wanted to add that I know of several young people with disabilities who've used the travel training, I think RideWise.
Yes.
And with just great results. And I've heard from the parents just the kind of thoroughness and the care that's taken in that training. So there's a personal testimonial, at least a firsthand knowledge that I have through friends of mine.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
and
I'm happy to
thank you.
share that with our team when we're back in the office. Thank you for sharing that.
And I just want to ditto what Travis has said, is that first off, just thanks for what you do. I think you folks provide an important piece of the continuum of public transportation that frankly we can't do the way you do. And so we appreciate it. We appreciate the partnership in a big way. I think there's, I'd like to see the partnership continue. I think some of the shuttles, the Grove Link, North Hillsborough that I'm real familiar with are pretty phenomenal opportunities. And without you, we wouldn't have been able to really provide service, for example, to North Hillsborough cost effectively. And a question I have for you guys is I see the Tualatin, I see the North Hillsborough, businesses, I always hear that they have concerns about the length of service, that their hours are often beyond what we work. Is that one of the complaints or one of the issues you're dealing with in your service in those areas?
Certainly, there are a number of businesses that operate round the clock. And as I'm sure you all know, it's very difficult to provide a cost-effective service at 2 in the morning. We do our best. We worked in North Hillsborough with the employers and the employees, putting out surveys to the employees, putting out calls to the business owners and HR people there asking, what are your shifts? We got shift times, we got responses from the employees, and we tried to meet that as best as possible.
Excellent, excellent. And then GroveLink, I look at that. Do you have any idea kind of just the mix of the riders? I mean, I assume students are a part of it. I assume seniors. I assume low income. I bet, but do you have kind of a demographic breakdown of your riders?
I do have some demographics
All right.
here, actually. So we did a survey in February of this year. And we found, it was an onboard survey, we found 31% of our riders identified as either an older adult or a person with disabilities. It was about almost 30% that were students as well, and 40% identified as low income.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. That's impressive. Impressive. So, what's the future as you see it? Where are you wanting to put your priorities in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I've become a nag at work about wanting to develop an app for people to be able to access our services more readily than they can now. So I'm hoping that within the next few years, maybe we can address that. So that's my big hope. All of our services continue to grow. We continually look for efficiencies, ways that we can provide the service more efficiently, and grouping rides or travel training folks, and we're always evolving and growing our services. So we're just starting an adaptive strategies process. So if you had asked me that question after tomorrow, after our board retreat, I could probably really zero in on some details, but we will be setting out a course for the next few years. Tomorrow's board retreat.
I was just a little premature.
I do think that there are some remarkable things that are coming out of working with not our atypical partners, looking at this healthcare model and how can we assist with that. There's also some opportunities for data collection that can really more demonstrate, everyone's talking about this return on investment, so how can we show that we need to provide different levels of support, some trips can be grouped, some trips cannot. So how do we demonstrate the need and the level of service that matches kind of the cost of those services too. And then I think back to the app, mentioning that we have a changing environment for volunteer recruitment too. People are working longer, leading busier lives. So I think there are technology components that will support our ability to manage those changes as we move forward in the future.
Well, again, thank you. Pretty pleased that you came in. We will get you in on a regular basis. I think we hope the partnership will grow and we'll look at other opportunities. And maybe with the legislature taking some action, we will have some more stable funding for transit.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yes, it would be. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McFarland, do you have some other things for us today?
I do, and I'd actually like to ask John Gardner to come up, and we're going to give you a little update on the research that we're doing related to the low-income pair program.
Thank you.
As he's coming up, I just would also just like to sort of augment that Ride Connections, if you think about our ATP or Lyft program, we provide about 1 million rides a year. 500,000 at Ride Connection, you begin to see how we've augmented the services to people with the great work that Ride Connection does, and what a great compliment it is to the ADA-related services that we provide as an agency. So again, just to note how important it is in the total sort of umbrella of services that we're able to offer our community. So note that. One of the things, a little introduction to John's note, that we're very grateful for Ride Connection stepping up was, we recall when Board Member Saragosa's suggestion, the board established a low-income fare mitigation program. And we needed to really rally and get those funds out to the community as quickly as we could. And I would tell you, Ride Connection was absolutely instrumental and a great partner, and very quickly beginning to ignite those connections that they had with other nonprofit groups and begin to spread the word of the program and begin to administer the program actually for us in a very efficient and effective way. And in a number of different ways, John's program continues to monitor that for us. But I'd also say things like the Tualatin Shuttle, when the Chamber of Commerce was frankly found themselves not in a position to manage very effectively the shuttle service, Ride Connection joined in a quickly developed partnership and really responded. So we're really very grateful for their ability to jump in, help us solve problems, keep services running, and actually expand the access to them. So a great, frankly, augmentation of what we can do in many different ways, and we're grateful for that. I think we've mentioned to you before that we have a consultant underway looking at low-income fare program. I thought John could give you a quick update on the research and sort of the timeline looking forward. So, Mr. Gardner.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. President Warner and members of the board. As Neil said, I'm going to talk a little bit about our approach and our efforts thus far related to low-income fare. But I want to first disclose that TriMet's been looking into a broader low-income fare program for over a year, and Bernie Bottomley and Janelle Bell got very far in outlining a strategy, but with the transition of Janelle, we lost a little momentum. So I was very excited earlier this year when Neil asked me to look into the feasibility of once again pursuing a low-income fare program. And so after discussing possible program parameters and research areas with TIAC, we actually procured for a research contractor in May and have begun researching national programs and the challenges and possibilities in moving forward in our own local area. So it's great timing for Ride Connection to speak just before I did, because as you know, TriMet has a long history of creating programs to make transit more affordable for youth, the elderly, and riders with disabilities. Transit fares are discounted relative to their true cost. Riders currently pay significantly less than the cost of a ride, with the balance of costs being borne by state, federal, and payroll tax resources. In addition, TriMet deeply discounts fares for youth, seniors, and individuals with disabilities, and under the direction of this board, as you were just reminded, you all created the Access Transit programs, which provides grants to grants and discounted fares to nonprofit organizations, which in turn use these resources to assist primarily low-income individuals. While these programs have provided much-needed access for low-income individuals served by nonprofits, TriMet does not currently have the resources to implement a new comprehensive program to provide a reduced fare for the broader population of low-income riders without additional partners. Addressing the transportation needs of low-income residents will require a comprehensive approach and the involvement by many regional jurisdictions and partners moving forward. To that end, we have outlined the following steps and timeline to gauge the interest and gather support for a local effort. As I mentioned before, we are now in the process of researching low-income fare programs across the country while working to better understand regional demand. And thus far, we have identified 11 specific programs that offer either a low-income fare program or bulk subsidy sales programs. As we gather our data, we are also working to identify and convene system partners and champions to this effort and stakeholders to be part of a regional conversation. Once gathered together, we will review the challenges and opportunities faced by existing programs across the country and discuss possible ways to localize those efforts into our own approach. Our goal is to work with this coalition to develop recommendations for consideration by TriMet's GM, and then present those recommendations to the full board later this fall. As a starting point for our research and conversation, we have identified 4 key tenets that we believe can serve as the framework for any future program design. Our hope is to design a model that is sustainable, where funding is ongoing and costs are shared with regional partners. Meaningful, the program is designed to address the needs of low-income riders, and access should be convenient and easy for our customers. Targeted, benefits should be directed to those that need them most by way of established eligibility criteria, and the program should take advantage of e-fare technology to maximize the direct impact. And manageable, administrating the program requires minimal costs and leverages existing agency agreements like that with Ride Connection, with nonprofits and community-based organizations, and eligibility should be managed by organizations that have experience in screening for income-based programs. Now, as far as the research area is concerned, as we're working with 49s, a research firm, and they're helping us gather the necessary information to inform our local conversation. The initial research areas include eligibility, access, cost, subsidy levels, program goals, and other aspects of the existing programs, including how they were funded, how they're being sustained, and the other partners that are involved in those other systems. We're also working with local partners to understand local demand and the need for an expanded program based on regional poverty statistics and other low-income demographics. So moving forward, our next steps, we expect to have all of our data completed by the end of August. Beginning next week, we're going to finalize our list of partners that we're going to be asking to convene and set our schedule for the next 3 months of convenings and meetings, with, again, our approach and our goal to come back to this board in the fall with program recommendations and options for moving forward with a low-income fare program. So that's very quickly a lot of complex information that I just wanted to give you in terms of a brief update. The good news is we've been working with TIAC on this issue all along, and so as we get research, which we did receive our first of 4 data products, we have the firm presenting that to TIAC, asking those questions to make sure that they're informing and part of the process.
Mitch, we have some comments, questions from the board. Any?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm very, very glad that we are making strides towards working to see if it's going to be feasible to do a low-income program. But I'm also want to encourage that it has to be manageable with equity and accountability. And I think the accountability piece is going to be one of the greatest pieces that must be developed and enforced, because while we want to be a help, we don't want it to be something that people begin to take advantage of or try to find, well, people always try to find ways around things, but we want to reduce that as much as possible, and truly be of help to those who are really low income and need those services. Want to encourage TIAC to continue to do that.
I think that's correct, and I think Ride Connection has shown a proven model to ensure that the right resources are getting to the right people, and any program that we're able to sort of promote and recommend will have checks and balances and oversight.
Well, for me, I can't wait to see what the recommendations are going to be, because ultimately, as many of you have heard me say before, the 2 greatest barriers to from poverty to prosperity is access to transit and access to childcare. And so the more we can address the situation and the challenges surrounding the low-income fare mechanisms that we need to mobilize the folks that truly need transit the most, the better off we are as an entire community. And so that's very, very critical. So I wish we had recommendations by now, but I understand the transition has slowed things down a bit. But I can see that, and I'm confident, John, you're going to tenaciously go after this. So I look forward to seeing those recommendations to see what we can do to continue to look at how do we assist the most vulnerable folks within our communities to enhance their ability to go from poverty to prosperity. So thank you for your leadership, and we look forward to those to those recommendations.
Well, I appreciate your vote of confidence, and that reminds me that your name, as well as Board Member Prosser's, came up as possible people on the committee. So if there's others that want to be involved, we reach out to everyone.
You know what happens when you miss a board meeting? I nominate Craig Prosser to this committee.
All right. Thank you very much.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
I was just, I guess I can just say ditto. I'm also I'm really interested in hearing the details, and I hope we can come up with a program that's simple to access and administer, because certainly the lives of low-income people and disabled people are complex enough, navigating all the different entitlement programs and so on. And so that would be certainly a value that I would look for, would be to make it simple to administer.
And as we receive the research products, we can give those to Neil, and he can forward those on to the members of the board, so you have all the context that we have in building out the program moving forward.
And I would note that some of the more, I think, interesting programs around the country link to existing program providers. So again, the question is not doing something, another layer, but working with service providers and others to do things like income verification, all that. And I think one of the things both John and I are very sensitive to, there's some things that TriMet does very well, other things that frankly aren't in our wheelhouse. And so we have to be sensitive to that, which I think brings me to the point that I just wanted to emphasize, is that this, to be successful, we really need to be a broad partnership. In particular, I think with the counties, who have, of course, the major responsibility for social service provision, but also other social service providers as well. And we have been talking to some of the county leadership, particularly in Multnomah County, but also elsewhere. They'll welcome the opportunity to have these conversations at a level. And frankly, also to see if they can do a better job of leveraging the funds they put into these transportation programs themselves with current programs. So I think this partnership that John is beginning to talk about will be very, very essential to coming up with a good solution, as you suggest.
Yeah, and I'll second what you're saying here. First off, thank you for getting on this, and I'm looking forward to the results. A couple things. First off, maybe you can let us know when you nail down the list of who the partners will be at the table. It'd be nice to understand who you're bringing together there, because I too believe this will only be successful if we have a number of partners who are part of this, and I'm talking about partnerships not only helping put it together, but probably also helping in terms of bringing sources, revenues, and other things to the table to make this work. And I think there's roles and responsibilities that could be that, like you said, in terms of who does means testing and verification on that. So I'm looking forward to what other, what you learn in your research from other areas around the United States. And it may be, this is important enough that we may want to get some of the people, either invite somebody from Seattle, because I know they've been at it now for, 2 years?
Year and a half.
Year and a half,
like that,
yeah. So it'd be great to understand what's actually happening up there and how that's working out, what the lessons learned. So if you got some really good programs that work, let's invite them out there, or if we have to, we could go there. Right. But I'm thinking it would be great to actually hear from some of the people who administer directly, and I bet your partners would like that also.
And that is indeed the plan, is to gather the research, convene the partners, have them hear from a real-life example that's been in operations for 2 years, take that information to develop our own localized approach, and then bring those recommendations back here. And I just had the opportunity to meet with Metro Councilor Sam Chase yesterday to sort of get closer to that final list that we'll be bringing back to Neil, and then again to make sure we have the municipal representation across the 3 counties, both at the system level but at the sort of elected official level. So we have the strength of funders, but also sort of systems to kind of bring strong recommendations that are fundable forward.
Great.
And I would just note to that end, the challenge will of course be the funding program.
Oh, yes.
So, but again, I think with partners, for example, also bringing in the legislature and others into the conversation, I think it's going to be absolutely critical to make this happen. But again, you gotta have a good idea and push it. And my goal is, or my experience has always been, great ideas do get funded ultimately. If we're smart in terms of putting the partnership and the pieces together. So that's what we're intended to do.
Yeah. And I'm thinking the last meeting of the Joint Transportation Committee is in late August or early September.
I believe that's right. I've lost.
And so if you have any early findings, that may be something we want to mention to them as they start contemplating putting together that package.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right, thank you, John. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
The only other thing I would just note is that we have a meeting for August, a little abbreviated meeting, and on August 10th, so just 2 weeks away. And I know we have also limited attendance to that as well, but I think we still have 4 members signed up. So just to note, it is vacation season, and we'll take it easy on you in August for sure. But we do have a few additional business items that come to you.
Okay, good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we're done. Okay. Thanks again to Ride Connection. So again, your iPhone.
I did that.